Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. Today I'm doing the A to Z book tag that Katie from Books and Things kindly tagged me into. This is a long book tag, and when I watched it I was like, oh my god, I am desperate to do this. It's a whole list of lovely booky things, so I'm just going to get started on it. And the first one is A, authors you've read the most books by. So the author I've read the most books by is obviously J.K. Rowling and all of her Harry Potter glory. So this is all 7 books, which I've read, obviously. Then I've read the 3 Hogwarts Library books, the Tales of Beedle the Bard, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Quidditch Through the Ages. I've also read Casual Vacancy, which I don't have here with me today, but I've read that. I've also read the 2 books that she's written under another name, which is The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith, and The Silkworm, also by Robert Galbraith, J.K. Rowling's name for writing crime novels, and that's the most books that I've read. The B is for best sequel ever. So in terms of sequels, I love The Hunger Games Catching Fire. I actually think Catching Fire is better than The Hunger Games. I loved the second one of those, and I just thought it was, when I finished reading it I was like, whoa, that was better than the first one, and I just think it's the best sequel ever. C is for currently reading. I am currently reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. D is for drink of choice whilst reading. It is always tea. Always, always, always. At the moment, it is a lemon, honey and lemon, ginger and manuka honey tea. But I love normal tea. I love fruit teas. It's always something nice and hot and tea-like. E is for e-book or physical book. So this is my Kindle. It's in a little case with little foxies on. I do still read on my Kindle. I don't read on my Kindle half as much as I used to. I prefer physical books. I just love the feel of books. I love the way they look on my bookshelf. I love the story of where I bought that book, be it in a second-hand shop or it was given to me as a gift or brand new from a bookshop. I just love books. So although I think e-readers are great and I think they've got a lot of pros, it's physical books for me, hands down, every time. F is for fictional character I would have dated at school. So I've always had quite a crush on Ron Weasley, and I think that he's certainly somebody that I would have dated had we been at school together. Watch out, Ron. G is for glad I gave this book a chance, and that book is Kate Atkinson, Life After Life. This is one of the best books I've read this year and one of the best books I've ever read. I saw it advertised when it first came out and just thought, I'm not sure that's something I'd be into at all, but read it for my online book club, and I am so glad I did. I will link a review below of what I thought about it and how wonderful it is. But basically it's a book about a lady, Ursula, who goes through her life and is given a second chance every time she dies. Sounds very confusing, but it isn't. It's beautiful and wonderful, and it spans such a good period in history. It fits so much in, and Kate Atkinson is just one of my favourite authors, and that's all because I read this for online book club. So well done, Kate Atkinson. H is for hidden gem book. Now I really struggled with this. I couldn't think of a book that I thought was, and I couldn't define what hidden gem was, and I really struggled with it. So what I've gone for is Zadie Smith on beauty. So Zadie Smith is a massively famous author. She wrote White Teeth, which is a massively amazing book. Also NW is one of her more recent ones, but she also wrote On Beauty, which I don't hear much talked about, and that's why I've counted it as a hidden gem. So this is sort of a family saga book set between 2 families, the Kipps and the Belseys. It spans in Boston, in America, and London, and it's just amazing. And just holding it now, I love the front cover as well, it's amazing, look at that. And just holding it now, it makes me want to read it, and it's just so much happens, and the way she writes her characters is just incredible, and I just think, to me, this is a hidden gem because it's one of sort of Zadie Smith's lesser known novels. Has she ever got any lesser known novels? Important moment in my reading life. Now I'm going to count that as when I started my booktube channel, because I've always loved reading since I was a child. I've always picked up books and read, and always read a lot, like a lot of books a month. But starting booktube has sort of like been, for me, just a way I've been able to get my hobby, just take it a little bit further, and I love it. I absolutely love talking about books. I love the little bookie friends I've made on booktube, and that to me is just a really important moment in my reading career, because it's just something that it just was me taking my hobby just one more step further for me, and I absolutely am loving doing booktube. J is for Just Finished. I have just finished Yes Man by Danny Wallace. I really enjoyed this. It was the second time I'd read it. I read it for my book club at work, and yeah, it's about a guy, Danny Wallace, who decides to take more chances and say yes more, and it's just really cute, and it's got some really funny bits in it, and he gets into some right hijinks, and yeah, just really liked it. K is for kinds of book I never read. Now, I never ever read science fiction. My dad is a science fiction nut, and he buys so much of it on his Kindle, cheap science fiction, and he loves it, and I just never read science fiction. Now, a book that I've recently seen reviewed on Mercedes Bookish Musings channel, and I will link the review below, is a book called A Long Way to a Dark Angry Planet by Becky somebody. I will insert it here, and that to me sounded amazing, and I wonder, I'm going to give that a go. I'm even thinking of putting it forward for my radio book club, because I want to sort of like span all genres in this book club, and I think this would be a good way to get into science fiction, because she just says it's an incredible book. She says it's one of the best books she's ever read, and I hold her opinion quite high. So science fiction is a genre I never read, but I'm looking forward to reading that book. L is for the longest book I've ever read, and that is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. This edition is 700, I wish, 983 pages long. I have read Gone with the Wind twice, and I really love it. I love the length of it, and how it consumes your life for a few weeks, and so much happens. Like it spans such a long amount of time, and I mean, surely everyone knows the story of Gone with the Wind, but it's about an absolute cool chick called Scarlett O'Hara, and a sort of love story of her and somebody called Rhett Butler, who she sort of like falls in and out of love with, and it just spans. It's in the American Civil War, and it's just such a good book. But it is the longest book I've ever read, and it is massive. And this is so heavy, so I'm going to put it down now. The major book hangover book. A book that has given me a major book hangover, and so that I'm still thinking about it even now, is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. It's a book about race, and as I've said before in one of my earlier booktube videos, it answered questions about race that I didn't even know I had, and I just think it's an incredible read. It's about two people, Ifemelu and Abinze, and they are a couple, and they are young Nigerians. If Emily moves to America, and Abinze wants to follow her but is not allowed due to immigration laws, etc. So he goes into undocumented life in the UK. It is just eye-opening and amazing, and I still think about it now, and just even talking about it makes me want to read it again. So that is the biggest book hangover I've ever had. N is for number of bookcases. Number of bookcases I own. I own 3 bookcases. I also have a book selection next to my side of the bed in quite a OCD way. I have a pile of books that I've read that month, a pile of books that I'm reading, the books that I've got to read this month, and then books that I'm planning on reading next month. So I also sort of count that as a bookshelf. I'm hoping to do a bookshelf tour when I hit 100 subscribers. So I'm on 93 at the moment. So if I get 100 subscribers, I'm going to do a bookshelf tour and show you all my lovely books. Oh, one book you have read many times. So I have read many times Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. So this is a book I like to read yearly, really, and I like to read it around this time of year actually. It's still a bit warm, but I like it when it gets a bit bleak and blustery and things like that, and I always like to read Wuthering Heights, so that is a book that I read every year. Obviously, I've read all of the Harry Potters more than 10 times as well, so that counts too, but I didn't want to make this the biggest Harry Potter heavy A to Z book tag ever. P is the preferred place to read. So my happy place, above all other places anywhere in the world, is sitting on my sofa with a cup of tea, my cat on my lap, and reading in a lovely nice light with a nice candle on. That is my happy place, and that is the happiest place I am ever. So that is my preferred place to read. Q is quote that inspires you, and it's from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and I'm going to have to ask David, who sat behind the camera, to close his ears because he hasn't got this far in the Harry Potter books. So it is, and it's I don't know if it inspires me, but it is just the most beautiful quote ever, and I absolutely love it, and it just, when I hear it, I think, God, that's why I love reading, because things like this happen in books. So it's quite an obvious one. But this is touching, Severus, said Dumbledore seriously. Have you grown to care for the boy after all? For him, shouted Snape. Expecto Patronum. From the tip of his wand burst the silver doe. She landed on the office floor, bounded once across the office, and soared out of the window. Dumbledore watched her fly away, and as her silvery glow faded, he turned back to Snape, and his eyes were full of tears. After all this time, always, said Snape. And every time I hear it, I get like, oh God, I feel emotional even now. And it just reminds me why I love Harry Potter so much and why I love reading. So, such a good story! Reading regret. So one of the books, I don't often read books that I absolutely hate, but one of the books I read that I was so disappointed in is Life of Pi by Yann Martel. I really wanted this to be amazing, and I was so disappointed because it wasn't amazing. I was bored. And yeah, I just remember I sort of like really flitted in and out of it, but felt like I had to keep reading it because I'd heard such wonderful things, and it never just got off the ground for me. And it was a regret of mine, I guess. S, series that you've started but you need to finish. So I have once read the first book in the Game of Thrones series, A Game of Thrones. I do not remember one thing about this book. I have read this book from start to finish and I don't remember anything. I've got the second one already because I'd finished that one. This is a series that I really want to get into. It's obviously massively popular, very, very well known, and this is a series I really want to give a good go. And like I said, I do like reading a long book, and I'm looking forward to reading this again and getting into it. So this is a series that I'm gonna really give a good go. I think maybe it's gonna go on my sort of like reading 2016 plans. So my 3 favourite books of all time. So I've mentioned these books already. So my first favourite book, I'm going to go for the classic that's my favourite, is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, which I read every year. So that is #1 of my favourite books. Also, that my favourite Harry Potter book is, and I love them all dearly, is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So that definitely counts as one of my favourite books because this is the one I've reread the most and I love it. I love the Triwizard Tournament in there and the introduction of like getting to know Sirius a lot more, and I just adore this book. And my third favourite book of all time is a new one that I've read this year, and that's Wonder by R.J. Palacio. So I read this for my first online book club. My friend Alex recommended it to me, and it's about a young lad called Augie, who has a severe facial deformity and has always been homeschooled, and he goes to school for the first time, and it's just so heartwarming and so lovely, and it's just amazing, and it's told really well. It's told, so each chapter is from a different person's perspective. So some of it's from August's perspective, some of it's from August's sister, or the new people in his class who are meeting him for the first time. And I just think it's so suggestive, and it really made me use my imagination. It's a children's book, but I just found it incredible, and I just love it, and I always recommend it to anyone. Unapologetic fangirl for, that is Harry Potter, and I will link my Harry Potter tag video down below because I just love Harry Potter. V is very excited for this release. So I mentioned earlier the Robert Galbraith series that J.K. Rowling's also written. It's a crime series that J.K. Rowling writes under the name Robert Galbraith, and it's really, really good. I mean, I'm quite into crime anyway. I find they're really gripping. But this is just like, it's really well written as well, and the main characters, it's almost like you could tell it was going to be a series, and she's written, and the main characters are really written well. So it follows Cormoran Strike, who is a private investigator, not for the police or anything, just a sort of detective, and his assistant Robin. I've forgotten Robin's surname. Robin, who is his assistant, and it's just really, really good reading. So the first one was The Cuckoo's Calling, the second one is The Silkworm, and then the third one is out this month, and it's called A Career of Evil. So that is a new release I'm really looking forward to. Worst bookish habit. I don't know what my worst bookish habit would be. David, what's my worst bookish habit?
Talking to me when I'm reading.
That's not anything. That's not my worst bookish habit. What's my worst bookish habit? I tell you what I do a lot. So I try and read before I go to bed at night, but I always try and catch up on my BookTube subscriptions as well. So quite often I'll be reading and then I'll stop to watch my BookTube books. Is that a worst bookish habit?
Yeah.
I take quite good care of my books. I'm not like naughty around books and things. I very rarely fold over pages. I tell you what I do need, bookmarks. I always lose bookmarks.
Yeah.
That can be my thing. I need more bookmarks because I always lose bookmarks. X is for X marks the spot, so I had to start at the top left and pick the 27th book on my shelf. The 27th book on my shelf was The Bees by Layla and Paul. This is a book which anthropomorphizes bees and the hive that they live in. It was recommended for the second book that we read in my online book club, and it really took me by surprise. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be like at all. It really did go into the ins and outs of bees' lives, and I found that side of it really, really interesting. I also sort of thought I felt like the absolute, like, the most knowledgeable person in the world about bees after I read this. I felt like the bee's knees after I read this. But yeah, I wouldn't say I loved it. It was different to anything I'd ever read before, and I did enjoy it. So yeah, that's the 27th book on my shelves. Y is for your latest book purchase. So I spent the weekend in Whitstable a couple of weekends ago with my lovely boyfriend for his 30th birthday, and while we went there, we went to a charity shop, and I managed to get 3 books for £1. It's amazing. The first book is The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. This won the Man Booker Prize in 2013, and I've got it out from the library many times and never got round to reading it. It is a big old beastie read. It's 832 pages long, but that was basically, these books were three for £1. This was 33.3 pence. Can you believe it? So I want to get round to reading that at some point. The second book I got in there was Charles Dickens' Hard Times. I read this and studied this for GCSE, and I wanted to read it. Oh, it's got a little Easter greetings card in there. Isn't that cute? I wanted to reread it, so I got that. And the last one isn't one that I'd normally pick up, but it is in my book club pile, and that's Jodie Picoult, Leaving Time. Jodie Picoult isn't a big favourite of mine. I sort of find her books quite samey, and there's like always heartbreak and angst and things like that, and sometimes I don't always want to read about heartbreak and angst. But this is in the pot of books that I've got in my book club at work, so I bought that as well. So those 3 were £1. That's amazing. And the last bit in the A to Z tag is Z, a book that kept you awake when you should have been asleep. And that book, my friends, will be tonight, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, because it's my radio book club tomorrow night. This book is 235 pages long, 225 pages long, and I'm on page 134. I have to have this finished by tomorrow. It shouldn't be too much of a problem, but I've got people coming around for dinner now, and I also want to watch Strictly. So I will be up until the early hours finishing this. So that's my A to Z book tag. I hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tagging me, Katie. I really, really love doing it. And if you like this video, then please give me a little thumbs up and subscribe and give me a comment, because I'd love to hear what your answers are to this A to Z tag. See you soon!